There are so many things I know now that I wished I knew back then. Lessons that I've learned over the years that really could have served me in my 20s and even in my 30s. So I was talking to my dear friend the other day, and we were just talking about our 20s and our 30s, and some of the mistakes that we made that could have been avoided had we known or had the wisdom that we have now. And of course, wisdom comes with experience in a lot of ways. There are some things you will never learn except by living through them. There are some lessons that just come from living and from life. That's why time, right, is such a key factor in teaching people things they need to learn if they're willing to learn those lessons. But there are also some lessons that can be passed down, or some information that can be gained through wise counsel, or having the right mentor, or just having your parents teach you certain things. And we were talking about, when we were younger, we wish that certain information was passed down to us, or we were shaped in different ways because we feel that we would have avoided those lessons. But, I'm thinking about that, but I also know that sometimes when you're young, you think you know everything. You really you don't know much, right, when you're young, but you think you know everything, and there are times when you don't listen to wise counsel. So we have to pay attention to that part of it. There's some things that people can tell you that you refuse to listen to, and you learn the hard way. But we were talking about things like, your self concept or confidence, or knowing your identity and your self worth, and how having a strong identity and strong self worth can prevent you from making mistakes that can harm you. It can help you set the right boundaries in your relationships, and help you form values that are near and dear to you that you won't cross. It can help you choose the right people for your life, not only the right romantic partner or future spouse, but also the right friendships. And we were talking about the ways in which we didn't always do that, even with our friends. We sometimes just became friends with people because we happened to be in the same school or in the same circle, or we grew up together, and so we remained friends with people who didn't even share our values. And how many times we betrayed ourselves and we silenced ourselves because we didn't have a strong sense of self. And as we were talking, we were just wondering, with the knowledge that we have now, how can we pass that wisdom and that knowledge down to the younger woman in our lives? Because I think that's key. Like, if you don't want to see the people in your life, right, make the same mistakes that you did, if you don't want to see the young woman in your life make wrong choices, how can you teach them? How can you guide them? How can you pass on the wisdom that you have gained? Because I think for many, many people, they'll say, oh, wow, like I was just out here in the world, like not having the skills, or not knowing how to deal with different situations, not knowing how to approach relationships, not knowing how to date smartly or wisely, not knowing anything about managing my finances, not knowing how to build a purposeful and an intentional life. And there are people around them who know these things and can pass on the wisdom, but they don't for whatever reason. Or maybe they have people in their lives who are older but don't have the wisdom to pass on. I think one way you can gain the wisdom is obviously through social media, watching uplifting content, but you have to be wise about the content you're consuming, of course. Another way is to seek out mentorship, right? Another way is to seek out friendships with older women, or seek out memberships in organizations that have the people who you admire, who you're inspired by, who will motivate you, because wisdom is key. And so many of us are still reaping the consequences of mistakes we made when we were young and did not know any better, or we knew better but we chose not to do better, because sometimes that's at play too. And I just wonder, for you, are there mistakes you made in your life that you feel could have been avoided if you had the right people to guide you, the right people to mentor you, the right people to pour wisdom into you? I I look back at my early 20s especially, and a lot of times, I look back, I just see myself really trying to figure it out on my own. But I think I could have done a lot of things sooner or faster if I had the correct mentorship in my life. Now, as I got later in my 20s and in my early 30s, I did find mentors. I did have mentors in my life in different areas, and that helped me a lot. That helped with the choices I made. I gained wisdom that I needed and the guidance that I needed. And for a lot of us, based on our background or our upbringing, sometimes that wisdom is just not forthcoming. There are things that our parents and our family members don't talk about. They don't talk about the mistakes that they made, maybe out of shame. They don't talk about, how to avoid the pitfalls that may have happened to them for whatever reason. And I think those are conversations that are so necessary, especially for us as we talk to the younger generation. Many times we try to appear perfect, or we want the younger people in our lives to look up to us, so we don't share the pitfalls, we don't share the struggles, we don't share the challenges that we experienced. And because we don't share those things, they miss out on the wisdom. And I don't want that. I wouldn't want that for anyone. As a person with children, right? With niece and nephews, and with younger women in my life, I have decided that I'm going to share more, right, or pour wisdom into them, not in a "oh, you shouldn't do that" way, but in a way that I hope that they would avoid some of those mistakes, where they would make choices that would help them and not harm them. Many of us are in that place in our lives now where we can pour into others. It's great to have mentors, and I have mentors. I have people who I get wise counsel from. I have people who I seek out, but I'm also in a space where I can have mentees, right? Where I can pour the wisdom that I have gained through living into people who are younger than me or even older, right? I am in that space now, and that's something that I didn't always have, but it's somebody I want to be. I once read a quote that really stuck with me: be the person you needed when you were younger. And I want to be that person. I want to be the person I needed when I was younger. I want to be the person that pour wisdom into younger people because I needed that wisdom. I want to be the person who give guidance. I want to be the person who gives of myself, whatever it is that I have to give, because there were so many things I needed. And I think that's something I want to encourage other people to do. There's so much that we have collectively, and we can help each other. Not only the younger ones, right, but even the people or your peers or people who are older than you. How can you help someone else? How can you pour into? How can you give of yourself? And one way I'm doing this is that I recently created a workbook called Becoming Her. I created this workbook because there were steps that I took personally, right, to grow into the woman that God has called me to be, and to continue to grow into that woman because I'm becoming. And I created this book for Christian women who do not want to settle, who want to become a woman who walks in purpose and a woman who walks in God's calling on her life. So that workbook is for a specific woman, and like I said, it's linked in the description box. But think to yourself, how can you pour your wisdom, your particular wisdom, into someone else? How can you give of yourself? I hope this video blessed you.